Hey folks, welcome to another market update. Joe here from JCS-Charting. In my previous update 3 weeks ago, we talked about the upside downside volume on the daily basis, and I mentioned the dominating upside volume during the entire December and also January. That came down a bit during that first decline we have seen from these all-time highs, but then on the second decline, upside volume picked up again and downside volume started to decrease. In other words, bulls are back, and this also fits the smart money which started pumping from that low on, so they kept on buying into that two declines we have seen at DAX. We're going to have a look at more charts. We're gonna do a quick weekend update, so let's hop straight into that. Another indicator which is also good to keep an eye on is the advanced decline line on DAX. It measures the cumulative difference between advancing and declining stocks. In other words, during that second decline, more stocks were advancing than declining. By the way, that second decline was mainly caused by one stock, SAP, which got hammered after their earnings. And by the way, if you want to have these indicators on a daily basis, I update them frequently. You have to join JCS-Charting on www.jcs-charting.com, and once you hop into that Discord, you get plenty of various channels here. This is advanced membership here, by the way. It shows my setups, it gives you chat rooms, it gives you the indicator reports we just talked about the advanced decline line, and several time frames of each index, and there has been quite a few updates on DAX, on the S&P, on Nasdaq, on these stocks which had earnings last week. Silver was of course very interesting, biggest decline I have seen in the last you name it, I think 100 years. You had gold now on several time frames. By the way, we were buying dips at the end of last week. And also very important, Bitcoin and crypto, Solana and Ethereum. You might have a look at that later on. But let's continue with DAX. And we are jumping straight into the DAX channel, the H4 thread, where I mainly discuss the subcycle chart. And this is what you see right here. And we were waiting for that subcycle low into Thursday, and that second cycle here turned in bearish. I was expecting actually a bullish cycle, which means I was looking for a higher low. We got a lower low. However, I was hedging here a bit into these lows to drag my long entries to the lower side, and that was mainly the right decision, because then we jumped out of that cycle, gapped up, and continued pumping with the cash opening. And I think we are gonna continue into next week with higher levels. Next suggested subcycle low is, by the way, due by February 6th. And a quick look into the hourly chart of DAX. Here you see we get plenty of updates during the day. Here I said, by the way, keep an eye on that purple 138%. And I gave my members then another important trigger here at that red line. We touched that just a little bit, but you see 24,316 was holding, and we pumped up straight away. We're still looking for a higher push into 24,585, which is that green line here, and that should open a new sequence for higher or a rejection again to retest these highs. And this didn't quite happen on Friday. We pumped a bit higher, but we kept on failing here. So we are still having 24,585, and 24,682 is important also for the following week. Also important to keep an eye on is the volatility, the VDAX of the DAX, which printed in first here outside the Bollinger Band high, and then we came up with a lower high, which prints in a higher divergence at DAX, which printed in a lower low, and this lower high here was another buy signal last week. And having a look on the daily chart, the Cetera indication of DAX, we have that broadening top. I discussed that many times at my Discord and also on X, and I even showed that here on YouTube, I think. It is known also as a trumpet, expanding price action, starting here with a high, a low, a higher high, a lower low, and a higher high here triggered. It broke out here. That's also where we shorted, by the way, for 700 or 800 points to the downside. We bought the first dip, and we were selling lots of longs also right here, and we kept on rebuying them into that other sell, and that pullback is normal behavior of that pattern before it usually runs higher. I wasn't expecting to go that deep, but still we printed in an inside candle of Thursday on that was here last Friday, so we probably run gapping down a bit, and then we should start the journey to the upside. DAX is probably building a pop gun here out of that. Watch these levels, 24,266 and 24,758. These are the triggers of that inside candle. My positions, my call positions are all secured at break even. The S&P 500 on the 4-hour time frame cash chart, I also reviewed that descending broadening wedge here in blue, still higher targets, first target at 7,148. We are about to build a new pattern here, another broadening top. Upper trend line needs to be touched here again in order to trigger that pattern. Then usually a little overshoot and a pullback is expected, and I'm still believing that we are in the last final stage of an EDT, an ending diagonal triangle, as wave 5. Lots of overlapping is taking place there, as you can see, and I don't think this is it. I still think we run at least into that green sequence, that second minimum target at 7022 or even 7108. This is just based on my analysis. Of course, we might run totally different, but again, I kept on buying these dips and I kept on buying these dips. So we are still in long positions here, all secured at break even. Nasdaq 100, a bit more tricky, also an H4 cash chart, a large bullish flag channel, which broke to the upside, then it broke back inside, then we broke up again, and then we retested that upper trend line here once we zoom in. Not that accurate on the second and third touch, but the first one back tested that upper trend line. That was all anticipated by my projection. We might build another rising channel, but we need to another confirmation right at the upper line. I know Nasdaq doesn't look as strong as the Dow Jones or the S&P 500. We printed in a double top at the all-time high on last week Thursday, and then we rejected by quite a lot, by 800 points. However, if Nasdaq is serious on that, there should be another run-up. Even all that price action here since December is not looking strong at all. Lots of overlapping, but that might be here another high-level consolidation. That green sequence has triggered above 25,600, and we usually see the second minimum target, the green one, 38%, which most of the time acts as turning point. Even 26,679 is possible here. I prefer to see the 27,000 area at Nasdaq. Again, if you want more detailed charts, hourly basis, daily basis, you need to join my Discord. Now gold, went up to a new all-time high with a slight double top here on the hourly chart, and then it came down. This was all projected by my daily outlook. This is now an hourly chart to go a bit more into depth. We have a red resistance zone, so this bounce here, if it lasts all the way up here to 5,111, keep your short trigger, be ready. We have not triggered lower below 4,790, that needs to be confirmed, but usually after a sell-off like that, I assume we run into that red sequence because that spike here was quite deep into it already. However, this is not confirmed yet, but I still think we run higher here into that green sequence. If that triggers higher, by the way, on the hourly close above that level, that green sequence is on for higher. So for the case gold drops here into that green box, it is a buy, a strong buy in my opinion. Silver monthly chart, I got quite a few laughs about it on my X, where I pointed out that we have seen here a 25% overshoot above the Bollinger Bands in April 2006, then 2008 was 23%, the same happened in 2011, and another one here in 2020, and now we have seen an incredible, I think I made the post where we had almost 40% above the Bollinger Bands here on the monthly basis. And just from a technical point of view, this has to pull back, and I mentioned that last week Sunday. Now we have seen from the top here an exactly 40% decline. Last week silver went all the way down into that 74 area. Again, I bought that bounce somewhere near 77, and price is already at 85.26. That was also the closing price on Friday. Now if you want to have the H4 hourly setup at silver, you need to join the Discord. I won't show that here for free. However, that monthly setup here worked out great. Even I got wiped out of my shorts. I had to hedge them because I went in a bit too early, and then yeah, I just didn't have the nerves to short. Here at that 122 mark again, we had actually 120 as a very nice resistance level, but then I was simply too late at silver. Bitcoin on the daily chart, we had that red sequence here below 89,217 triggered with that candle, and a couple of days actually after that. I kept saying we need to hit these minimum targets of 79,182 down to 75,124, and this is what happened right in the middle of our suggested time frame. The timing cycle is actually shifting a bit to the right, so I don't think here, by the way, that low is set. Bitcoin is usually very accurate with my sequence levels, and 75,124 is not even hit. Keep in mind 66,417 is also possible if things get crazy and volatility is picking up, and this is usually the case at cryptos. And last but not least, Ethereum triggered that red sequence below 2,704. It bounced off that level here, got us a nice rally of more than 800 points, but Ethereum is not done yet. We have a minimum target area between 1,926 up to 2,150. Time frame is at the end of next week to complete these minimum target. If things get completely crazy at Ethereum, you should expect 1,446, but I prefer 1,926 as turning point. The red 138% expansion is most of the time a reversal trigger at Ethereum. That's about it for today. I hope you liked that video. Don't forget to hit that like button, leave me a nice comment, and I most likely see you again in 2 weeks, because next week I'm traveling again and I don't have time to record a video. Have a nice remaining Sunday, and bye bye.